Yo, a new slang term has been invented, a Karen. This word is used for women who aggressively complain about petty matters, act out of a sense of entitlement, and are troublemakers. For example, a woman who called the police to shut down a child's lemonade stand just because they didn't have a permit. Although this term is focused on white women, I would expand it to include women of all races, since this attitude and behavior is not limited to whites. It is certainly prevalent among women, but not men. Utah Governor Spencer Cox received the following letter. His last name is spelled Cox. Dearest Governor Cox, I do not know if you know this, but when people say your surname, it sounds like the word cock. It's obscene. Us decent people here in Utah will not stand for it. The Honorable Republican Party will not stand for it. Most importantly, I will not stand for it. Because of your reluctance to change your foul, dirty, and obscene surname, myself and thousands of other Utahns will be sitting in protest until you change your heinous surname to something less offensive. This is a social justice issue, and we will not be denied basic human decency. If our civil request is not met, we will assemble and do what democracy was made to do by recalling you from office because of your filthy surname. This is not a communist dictatorship. This is the great state of Utah. We do not accept sick jokes to run rampant in our civil institutions. We demand a response to this letter and expect to hear back from your office. Love, a very concerned citizen. Yet the Anglo-Saxon name Cox was historically recorded as existing as early as 1273 in England and is a relatively common name in today's United States. It could have originally meant rooster, mound, or red. I too was involved in a war over words. I have a certain mental condition which I surmised was Asperger's syndrome. Asperger's syndrome, that is. So I attended a group for people with Asperger's. This group consisted of those who had this condition, along with some parents of those with the condition. At my turn to speak, I explained that some of my functioning was retarded. Immediately, two women, one Asian, one Hispanic, explosively reacted. They went on a tirade over my use of the word retarded, said it was an attack on the children, and proceeded to disrupt the meeting. They also mentioned racial issues. But not only do I have every right to describe myself in any way I deem fit, they were the ones who were persecuting, since I have a mental handicap. Additionally, women have angrily confronted me in groups and stores numerous times, while I have never observed another man being confronted. Again, since I have a mental handicap which facilitates unusual behavior, they are bigots against people who are different. A woman working as a DoorDash delivery driver approached the purchasing man's house and complained through the speaker that she found her $8 tip unacceptable. She then walked off with the man's food instead of giving him what he purchased. Numerous women berated and shouted at a restaurant employee in many different cases for 15 to 20 minutes just because the employee made a simple mistake such as putting pickles on the various women's sandwich instead of onions. Because of restaurant order mix-ups, some women threw things, some threw food and drink into employees' faces, and some jumped the counter to attack an employee. One woman smashed out a McDonald's window just because she didn't have chicken nuggets. Another woman smashed a window at Popeyes after she found out her meal didn't come with a drink. As a teenager, I was jogging alongside a street when four dogs jumped out and attacked me. I defended myself by kicking at them and throwing boxes and other junk that were lying around. A woman pulled up in her car, shouted at me that I was abusing animals, called me an SOB, and tried to run me over. I escaped by hopping a ditch. While waiting with my parents While walking with my parents to check out a neighboring subdivision, a woman pulled up in her car and shouted that we had no business in her area and must leave. She kept following us in her car while repeatedly shouting and swerving toward us. The Washington Senators baseball team held a special Ladies' Day on September 13th, 1897, where women could attend for free. But in the fifth inning, the dashing and handsome Senators pitcher got in a heated dispute with the umpire. So the umpire ejected him from the game. The thousands of women there yelled and screamed at the umpire during the rest of the game. After the Senators lost to the Red Stockings, hundreds of women rushed the field and pursued the umpire, and the ballpark stands were left in shambles from the women's violent outbursts. Although women's wrath is usually against men, there are exceptions. For example, an Amazon delivery driver, a 21-year-old Hispanic woman, got in a dispute with a 67-year-old woman over some packages. The young woman then shouted about white privilege and hit the elderly woman 10 times, breaking her nose. The driver was subsequently arrested and fired. Women's misbehavior is certainly not new. Their aggressive sense of entitlement is actually known from ancient times. Quoting the King James Bible's Proverbs 21:9, it is better to dwell in a corner of the housetop than with a brawling woman in a wide house. Proverbs 21:19, King James. It is better to dwell in the wilderness than with a contentious and angry woman. Proverbs 27:15-16, ASV of 1901. A continual dropping in a very rainy day and a contentious woman are alike. He that would restrain her restraineth the wind, and his right hand encountereth oil. How should we react to these Karens? Between the 16th and 19th centuries, women who were deemed troublesome and were sometimes made to wear a muzzle. This so-called scourge bridle was used in the UK as an instrument of punishment for women whose harsh chiding was a source of annoyance to family and or neighborhood. It was fastened upon the head with an iron part that fit into the mouth, making speech impossible. I would reinstate this method. The correct method for some other women who misbehave should be to completely avoid and shun them, sending a strong message that their behavior is unacceptable. Others should be confronted for their complaints with just an outraged tone as they display. That is to nip their behavior in the bud before they feel entitled to physical violence. Women's physical violence has sometimes become extreme, such as numerous wives having cut off their husband's penis with a knife. For women who threaten violence or commit violence, we must suspend the ideas of chivalry and never hitting a woman. Defensive violence toward such women is necessary as long as the patriarchy is dismissed and feminism reigns. As for women's extreme violence, they all must be punished to the fullest extent of the law. The only way we will be able to eliminate this prevalent insanity will be to fully reinstate the patriarchy and male authority as God originally intended.